All right, everyone, we are back with another Age of Fantasy Regiments battle report. My dwarves against some sea elves from Sam. 4,000 point battle report this time, so going a little lower. Let's get into the details. So it's 4,000 points. We actually got 5 objectives this time, which felt pretty nice to have, like I said, have a lot of objectives floating around with an army this big. 4,000 is pretty large. It was nice to go back to 5 objectives. We are continuing to sort of use some of the Kings of War movement system. It's very similar to Age of Fantasy Regiments. We're just sort of doing things like allowing units to pivot anytime they need to charge. We're going back to just the normal Age of Fantasy Regiments of combined units of 2. We're doing the command points. We're playtesting the command points, so we're not doing those ones we did now. I actually did this in my previous Grimdark Future battle report, streamlining the command points down to 3 things, and slightly tweaking the 3 command point structure. So the first 1 command point lets you get +1 to a single dice. 2 command points let you reroll all the dice for a roll, and 3 command points. Previously, we were having it pass a failed morale check, but that's a little too powerful. So we instead moved it down to just removing a waiver from a unit. 3 command points to pass a failed morale was just still a little too strong. And for undead, undead can also ignore an undead test from shooting or when the unit is over 50%. So we think that sort of 3 command points, like I said, to pass any failed morale check was a little too strong. So on the army list, so both of us are running slight tweaks. So I'm running 2 dwarf champions. One is in a steam-powered suit. The other one's on a Great Bear. I'm running both of my units as casters. I've got an Ancient Guardian. That's my tweak to the Golem, where I've basically added this thing called Bearer of Grudges. It's basically handing out +1 to hit to 2 units. So I like the idea of giving it a little bit of a support facility as well. I've got 4 units of warriors. They're just with basic hand weapons, just really good chaff / meaty units. I've got 3 units of bearded warriors. 2 I have with great weapons, and 2 I have with heavy spears, and 1 I have with great weapons. I've got my iron warriors, 2 sets of them, 2 hammerers. I have some of these guys with sergeants too. I've got 3 hammerers, I apologize. 6-man unit of steam power suits with the heavy shields. I've got 3 units of marksmen. I've got some beast riders. And then I'm finishing it off with some warbears that have the halberd upgrades. And I've got an attack helicopter that I've actually put on the flamethrower this time. So I like the flamethrower, they hit on 2s. I've also adjusted the spells. I think the dwarf spells, both of us have adjusted our spells. Both of us basically have removed all the movement and the flying spells. We think that just generally those aren't, I don't know, there's something just, we don't like the movement buffs on our spells on any army, and the flying spells as well. So we've basically removed those from both armies, and we've added some. On the level 2 option, instead of the movement, I've actually added a regen slot. I think that dwarves having a defensive spell is sort of natural for dwarves. The Spite Rune I've added back in. This is actually what it used to be, and for some reason they switched it. So I've actually added that Spite Rune back at -1 to hit melee. And on the level 3, instead of the flying, I've added +2 AP when they fight in melee. So nice mix of spells for me for dwarves. I feel they're pretty dwarfy too. For Sam, he's modified some sea elves. The first thing he's did is he's given Sea Guard. He's given them spears. I think that's pretty much for sea elves. You have to have a spear option in this game, so I think Sea Guard with spears and javelins is a great mix. He's got some command on both of these. 2 Sea Masters that he's got the Lantern of Souls. That's the Constrict that he's casting on things. He's also got another Sea Master on a Sea Drake that has Soul Collector. That's a +1. That is the +1 morale checks on some units as well. He's got 3 scholars that he's all given warning cries to and casters. So he's running a little more caster than me. He's got 2 units of elven thralls that he's tweaked a little bit, giving them poison and melee, which I think is a nice little addition for them. He's got some giant crabs that he has in ambush. Those guys are great. He's got some water LAs, and he's actually tweaked these. For his water elementals, he's actually given them reliable on their attacks. And I actually like that for water elementals. I felt water elementals were pretty weak. So I think giving them reliable feels very sort of water elementally. So I like it. The Greater Warlord Mill, he's also given him Reliable. So, and he's got a giant war turtle that he's running with his distortion drum. A Kraken, this is his own person. This is his own also custom creature that he's given Constrict and a giant tentacle. So basically just a combat creature. He's got 2 Sea Serpents. This is also a custom where he's also has Constrict. He's got a Toxic Jaw, Bash, and a Toxic Spit as well. So kind of a combined unit, but also a tough 6, so it's a relatively weak creature. 2 Sea Up Artilleries that he's actually switched out for a mini harpoon launcher. So he's actually tweaked it to be basically more like a miniature bolt thrower. He's given it 8 attacks here. He's got some Depth Horrors as well that he's given them dual heavy hand weapons with Constrict. These things hit pretty hard as well. And he's also tweaked his spells to where he's removed some of the movement shenanigans, especially with Strider in their army. It's really tough to get +1 moves. He's given them -1 defense for 1 unit on level 1. He's given stealth for 2 of them on level 2. And he's given +2 AP like me on the charge. So I think that's pretty good. Yeah, both of us are liking our spells. So this is just my dwarf army everything's straightforward. I got my warriors in the back, my marksmen to the left with my mechs. I've got my 3 hammers. I've got the 3 bearded warriors. The two ones in blue are the ones with my spears, and then the one in green is my great weapons. I've got the 2 iron warriors as well. And then I have my leader on Great Bear and the leader of the steam mech. Just going forward, I've got my ancestral guardian here. So I did want to make him a little more dwarfy, so that's why I've kind of made rules for him. I've got my copter here. I've got my beast cav, and I've got my war bears. So still trying to get some things painted, but it's coming along for him. On the bottom, he's got his 2 Sea Guard regiments. He's got his water elementals right above them. He's got his crabs above them, greater water elemental. He's in his depth horrors right beside his, to the right of his water elementals. He's got his casters. Those 2 dragon things on the top, he's using those as his sea serpents. That's just them. To the right of them is his kraken. Below them, there is his warthole that's kind of have the lizard figure. The 2 blank bases are his ballistas. The 2 units at the bottom are his elf thralls. He's got his 3 mages sort of clumped up in the center. And he's got his 2 sea masters. Both of those going to be running with the elf thralls. Okay, so for the setup here, this is just... We're trying to play as if a tournament happens. So what we really did is focus on making the terrain be pretty varied, but also relatively balanced. So we've got a good mix of hills, difficult terrain, forests, buildings, and we've also got some, just on the other side here, we've got some difficult terrain like I said, a good mix of difficult terrain and obstacles, hills, and forests. That's just the picture. You can see here so both of us were setting up our objectives. We didn't pick sides yet, so you can see it basically came out to pretty balanced, where we just have 3 right in the center, and then we have 1 each on both of our sides here. So that's just that side. I took a picture here because I wanted to show you, this is probably my strategy, which is to sort of focus on 3 of these. So both of us are sort of picking our 3. This is just another picture of it. And here's our army setup here. So you can see here, I actually took a picture here to show you the dwarves don't have a lot of speed, so we have to sort of pre-pick our objectives. And these are the 3 that I picked. I've got the one next to me, and I'm basically going to try to grab 2 more of these. I don't think I'm going to be able to grab 4. I just don't have the speed for it. So just 3 objectives is all I'm going to be able to get. All right, so here, and as you can kind of see, I've stacked pretty heavily towards the center. I've got my steam mechs and my bears basically running here to basically push off this. He's set up pretty light on this side. He's got his Sea Guard and 2 monsters, but I'm pretty much going to be able to push him off with some Iron Guards, some Bearded Warriors, mechs, and my bears. That's both of my characters as well. So I feel I can push him off on the right side, and then all I really have to do is just gain those 2 objectives towards the left and the center. That's just the picture here on my left. You can see here I've set up pretty heavy in the center here with, I've got a lot of infantry here, my warriors that I'm going to be using as chaff, my iron warriors, and then I've got, again, 3 of my hammer elites. So those are going to be basically the idea. I'm just going to run up to the center, just tank some of his damage, and just make room for those hammer elites to just get into combat. I've got my ancient guardian right back there who's going to be given +1 to hit on several things. I've got my beast cav right in the center to go either direction. And then just towards the far right, you can see here I set up pretty light. He put both of his catapults there. So again, I'm not going to win this. So I just have my warriors here with a unit of bearded warriors, and I've also got my copter just there to sort of stall. I just want him to commit pretty heavily there and just have him commit resources. Over here, that's just another picture of the objectives on my side. We'll just show you here. Looks really great. I love playing at these higher point levels, especially in regiments. It's just 4,000 to 6,000, such a great point total. Feels really awesome in the game. But yeah, you can see here, he's definitely going to be pushing, and I think he really wants to sort of collapse this bottom flank. I'm hoping to just sort of put enough stuff in front of him that I can just hold that flank and then just sort of grab that center here. That's just another picture. Again, that's his 2 health thralls. Yeah, pretty straightforward here, but it's just his line that he set up. And yeah, that's just from my perspective. This is what he's looking at. He's looking at a lot of dwarves, just a really solid center push with those elites coming towards that left flank. Yep, and that's just my picture. You can see here on that right flank on his side, pretty light. That's just his side. Yeah, so turn 1, I do get to go first. Yeah, I just basically start pushing up the center. So that's just the dwarf warriors moving up. He moves up his water elemental towards the right. I push up another unit of warriors. His Sea Drake guy, he casts his Soul Collector on these 2 units of Elven Thralls. And then he moves up. I move up one of my Iron Warriors towards the right. So for me, I'm just mainly just moving forward. He moves up his Sea Serpent, shoots at the warriors. Yeah, he does like 2 wounds on them. He's got that little poison attack. So yeah, my rifles move up and they shoot at the Sea Serpent. Actually, I do 3 wounds and actually waver him. But Sam actually uses 3 command points to remove that waver, so he's no longer wavered. He then moves up his Kraken right next to his water elemental. Yeah, my rifles on the bottom, they move up and they shoot at his Sea Drake Master on the hill, but they fail to wound. His mage goes and casts stealth on the Sea Drake and the turtle, so that's just the stealth on them. We have a lot of abilities flying around here, so I may miss some, but just so you know, we were having a lot of abilities happening. My rifles move up and they shoot at the Kraken. I think they do a couple of wounds. They do 2 wounds on the Kraken, and he's fine. He then moves up his water elementals. I move up my bearded warriors. He moves up. He moves up his thralls. I then move up my copter and I flame his thralls. He actually rolls great, and I only do like 1 wound. I think he made like 5 out of 6 saves, so a good roll on his part. The war turtle moves up and gives stealth to the thralls again, and gives stealth. So now these guys have both stealth and +1 morale on the thralls. I move up my bearded warriors just on the far left flank. He moves up his depth horrors, so he's moving them up. This is his mage moves up, but she doesn't cast the spell. I move up my other Iron Warriors. He moves up his Sea Serpent, and I think he shoots at my Bearded Warriors, but I don't think he does any wounds to them. I move up one of my Hammerers here, so you can see I'm just really sort of pushing the center pretty slow. His Mage moves up and spends 4 tokens to cast +2 AP on both the Water Elementals and that Sea Drake, so that's just their marking here. Excuse me. I think I move up, and then I think he moves up something as well. We had a lot going on. I then move up my Hammers, just sort of keeping them waver. He then moves up one of his mages. I then move up my other Hammerers. At this point, I think he moves something, and then I move up my warriors. He shoots at my warriors. Only does 1 wound, so he rolls bad on this artillery. Only does 1 wound on the warriors with 8 shots. I then move up my second warrior sort of to get some protection. He shoots, and he fails to even wound them. So it's been 2 bad rolls already from this artillery. That's 8 shots AP1. So some bad rolls. I move up my beast cav. He moves up his Sea Guard and he shoots at my at the warriors in the back. Does 4 wounds on them. So those Sea Guard are already putting some damage in. I move up my my Ancient Guardian and I give +1 to hit on the Beast Cav and also one of the Hammerer units. So I'm already just sort of souping them up. He moves up his Sea Guard and they shoot at my mechs. I think they do a couple of wounds on them. That's just the Sea Guard moving up. Or he may not even have failed to even wound them. I'm not sure. It's a minor amount of wounds. My mechs move up and they give regen to themselves and the Iron Warriors right beside them. And then I have I have a lot more activations than him. So I then just move up my Bearded Warriors behind them. I then move up my bears. My bears cast regen on themselves and the Iron Warriors to the far left. So basically these 2 Iron Warriors squads both have regen, and the bears also have regen as well. And yeah, that's just an overview of turn 1. It's been a lot of just moving here. There's been some shots. Sam's had some bad rolls generally for shooting. I've generally had some better rolls doing some damage. But yeah, because I've done a few damage. He's had some bad nerve rolls. But generally speaking, it's going to be turn 2 where things are going to get pretty interesting here. So that's just some more pictures of the battlefield here. And yeah, you can just sort of see here, we've got our lines closed up. I just basically have pushed forward into him. And yeah, that's just a picture of the battlefield. Turn 2 is going to be where the action starts. So yeah, that's just some pictures as well. Yep. And let's go to turn 2. Sam does get to go first. And he also ambushes in his crabs. So he tried to place them in some area, but he couldn't find anywhere good. So he actually ambushes them behind the army. So his crabs are just coming in support. First thing he does, yeah, he sees these mechs. These mechs are nasty. So he goes ahead and commits his water elemental into them just to fatigue them. I think he doesn't even wound them. Those guys are 2 up shield wall, and actually I just killed this water elemental, but he does fatigue these mechs, so that is something good for him. I then take one of my wounded warrior squads and I charge his Sea Guard. Yeah, I think we both roll. I think he actually does more wounds than me, and with ranks I fail my morale check and they run, so those guys warrior squad is dead. The Sea Guard then move up and they shoot at the Cav, the Beast Cav behind them, doing 3 wounds. I move up, again, my Copter, it just stays where it's at and flamers those Thralls. This time I roll good and he doesn't roll great saves and I do 7 wounds. So those Thralls are actually down to only 3 Thralls with his Seamaster inside. He then takes his Sea Serpent, charges my warriors. Sam has been rolling sort of bad, and those rolls continue. He just charges my warriors, rolls terrible. I think he only kills like 2 of them, and we actually stick. Yeah, because I think I end up doing like 2 damage too. Those dwarven warriors hit on 4's base, so it's pretty good. I then take my other warrior squad, and I charge his Sea Drake. I know this guy's got +1 AP, and I want to sort of do what he did to my mechs and fatigue this guy. He actually chooses not to fight back, because I think he wants to sort of save that +2 AP on the charge. So he just takes a couple of wounds, and then he passes his morale, which is fine with me. He then sends his Thralls into my warriors. This is the heavily wounded Thrall unit. He doesn't roll great, and actually I roll terrific. I think I roll like 4, 5, 6s, kill the Thralls, and actually put a wound on the Seamaster here. So again, some really good rolls on my part. At this point, I send my Iron Warriors into the flank of his Sea Drake. The Sea Drake only has 1 wound left because the rifles did 2 wounds on him, and I kill the Sea Drake, and then I just turn to face. His other sea serpent moves up, shoots at the warriors, but more bad rolls, doesn't do any damage. So yeah, Sam is definitely rolling bad this game. I send my 8-man warrior squad into his sea guard. I do a few wounds, but I think I do some wounds, and actually I waver them. But Sam spends 3 command points to unwaver them. So that's just I showed the waiver. Sam uses 3 command points to unwaver them. The other thralls unit. This is the relatively fresh unit. They go into the flank of the warriors, and they kill them. So now the warriors are dead. I send my Iron Warriors into this Kraken. I think I do. He does 2 wounds, but I do. Again, I do some pretty good wounds, and I actually beat him, and then I waver him. So So Sam, again, he's rolling some bad waivers, so I waver his Kraken. His artillery shoots, but actually his artillery continued to roll really bad. Shoots and only does 1 damage into these warriors here. So more bad rolls for Sam. My warriors then run up and I block. Basically, see this Sea Drake and these Water Ellies, both of these have these +2 AP on the charge. So those are nasty. So I don't want him charging my other units. So I basically send these warriors as sort of sacrificial lambs to die. His turtle moves up. He actually shoots at my copter. He's got that deadly weapon, but that copter is in cover and it's got a 2-up def. So he hasn't been able to wound the copter yet. But he does give stealth to the thralls and I think the crabs. At this point, I think, one of my warrior squads shoots into his thralls. Within 12 inches, this is the problem. I think that Sam is still used to playing with the old rules for stealth, but stealth now isn't that... Him having stealth on a lot of his units isn't so great anymore, because I basically just shoot those guys within 12. I remove the stealth, and then it doesn't affect me, so... This is definitely Sam. He's not quite used to the new rules where stealth just isn't that good. So I do shoot those thralls. I do 3 damage and I remove the stealth on them. Excuse me. He shoots at the steam mechs. I think he does a couple of wounds. That's his sea guard shooting at them. Does a couple of wounds. And then these guys fatigued. They do charge the sea guard. They do 2 wounds on him, but both units stick. The Sea Drake charges the warrior squad with his +2 AP. He also hands out the Lantern of Souls, I think. And then he does 5 wounds, but the warriors actually rout as well. So he does clear out those guys. I think he was hitting at like AP 4 and 5 sometimes. So he kills the warriors and he just backs off a little bit. That's just showing that side there. Like I said, there's a lot of counters going on here. We followed it. Basically, a lot of these units either have... a lot of them either have the +2 AP, they've also got some stealth, and they've also got the Lantern of Souls on them. So there's a lot of buffs going on here, basically. My Bearded Warriors, they move up, basically to... What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to protect these hammerers. My hammerers are right behind them, and so I move these Bearded Warriors up, knowing that if he charges them and kills them, I've got some units of hammerers right behind them just to protect them. So I'm very aggressive, just sort of taking the center. He unwavers his Kraken. My rifles shoot at those thralls. I do 5 damage. So actually this thrall unit is down to 2 with the Seamaster in there. His mage moves up and casts -1 def on my Bearded Warriors on the bottom in green. So that's just their -1 def on that unit. My rifles, they move up in the back and they shoot at the Drake. I think they do a few more wounds into them. That's these rifles on the bottom. So I have got those 2 units of rifles. The second one shoots at the Drake. Does a couple of wounds on him. But it's enough to, like I said, that Drake's up to 7 wounds now. So it's a lot of his Drake is now starting to take some wounds. The mage moves up and casts a spell on my Iron Warriors, but fails. The Bear Riders at the bottom, they move up, and actually they cast a deadly I have a deadly damage spell, and I cast it on the Kraken. So I do 3 damage, and actually I waver that Kraken. That Kraken is just not having a good time. So I actually waver that Kraken again. So Sam's also just sort of rolling really bad when he really needs to start. Turn 2 is a really bad turn to roll bad. The Sea Guard throw their spears into the mechs. They do 2 more damage. My Bearded Warriors here, they just move up. I'm trying to give some space for those beast cavalry. So the Bearded Warriors just move up. The Crabs move up. They just inch up a little further. My Ancient Guardian, it moves towards the center, and it gives itself, and it gives these other units of hammers in the center +1 to hit. So now both of these hammers have that +1 to hit. That's like 20 attacks that's hitting on 2s with AP2. So these hammers, there's a reason that I'm protecting them, because they're going to hit like an absolute truck. So yeah, that's just another picture with that Guardian. His Sea Serpent charges and flanks my warriors, but he rolls really bad, and actually those warriors survive. So at this point, I send my Beast Riders into the flank of his Sea Serpent. I do like 5 wounds, but he does stick. The Crabs go into the Bearded Warriors, seeing that the Beast Cav has already been committed. Yeah, they kill the Bearded Warriors. The other Bearded Warriors, they actually, they sort of shift to the left. They're trying to make some room for the Hammers and the Warbears. That's those Bearded Warriors in blue. The Water Elementals, so Sam sort of sees the trap I'm setting, and he doesn't want to commit those Water Ellies. So he actually just moves the Water Elementals back. The Hammers now, so the Hammers, they come from behind those Iron Warriors, and they actually shift towards the right flank. So that next turn, I actually in charge range to charge that Kraken. My other Hammers, they move up behind these Bearded Warriors. And then finally, I have my other Hammers, they move up. So again, I've sort of created some space. And all I'm doing really is, as I've done in the past, sort of protecting these Hammers so they can just get in range and just hit stuff. So that's the end of the second turn. You can see a lot of bad rolls for Sam. He's had to burn a lot of his command points as well, and just some failed waivers. Yeah, just the center here. You can see here that I'm really, he has cleared up a lot of my chaff in the center here, but those Hammers are just coming up there, and they're protected by those Bearded Warriors. Those rifles have been doing damage. So yeah, I'm just and just on the right flank here, yeah, I've had some really good rolls with that Kraken, who's basically failed 3 morale checks. So it's not going well for Sam. It's kind of sucks that I think it's just a really bad turn to roll. And Sam sort of took it like a champ, but I can also understand his frustration when bad rolls sort of happen. So turn 3, he does get to go first, and he sends his Sea Drake into my Iron Warriors. He rolls okay, but only does 2 wounds onto the Iron Warriors. And then these Iron Warriors, they actually do more wounds, and then he fails a morale check and he dies. Yeah, just a really bad roll for Sam. Just not doing great on the rolls, and then I do more damage, and then he fails a morale and he's gone. So it's really bad for Sam. The Beast Riders charge and finish off the Sea Serpent, and they just turn to face the Adept Horrors. His Mage cast the -1. His Mage you can see that green Mage right above the house. He moves up and casts -1 def on the Iron Warriors here. So that's just that. My Bearded Warriors actually charge his Seamaster, kill the Seamaster, and they actually shuffle to the right. So yeah, that's one of his Seamasters dead. His Sea Guard actually they shoot that they failed to kill. So they actually shoot the that's those Sea Guard. They just point blank range throw their javelins into my mechs, but they don't kill any. That's a 2-up with a shield wall on that unit. My rifles, they shoot at the thralls again, and they go ahead and they finish off the thralls and the Seamasters. So yeah, even his Seamaster died. He shoots with one of his ballistas on the top right, and actually does 4 wounds into this warrior squad. So this warrior squad only has 2 models left. The rifles on the bottom, they shoot at the crabs on the hill and do 3 wounds into them. Yeah, his second artillery piece shoots and actually finishes off the warriors. So takes out the remaining 2 warriors. I then move up my copter right in front of those crabs. I don't want those crabs charging my hammer, so I block their way. And they flamethrower. I think I do 1 damage on the crabs. His mage moves up and gives and casts -1 def on the copter. He wants to sort of see if he can kill that copter. The rifles, they then shoot the crabs again. This is my last rifle squad. They shoot the crabs and they do 1 more damage. So he then unwavers his kraken. I then charged into the my mechs charge into the Sea Guard. I actually failed to cast the spell, but I do 7 wounds into them and I waver them. His other mage moves up and does a spell attack into the Iron Warriors and does 3 wounds into them with their -1. Remember, they had -1 def, so now they've been up to they go up to 5, but they pass their morale. The Iron Warriors then just sort of shift to the right. Again, if you see below, I've got these hammerers, so I'm just making room so that these Iron Warriors are just going to finish off this Kraken. The Depth Horrors charge my Beast Riders and kill them, and then they just sort of face. So he's broken through my left flank. He's going to try to come towards the center here. That's his Depth Horrors. Hammers go in, and they kill that Kraken. And actually, they face now. So I've also now cleared the right flank, and I have this objective now. The Sea Guard move up, and they shoot into the rifles, do 5 damage into them, but they pass their morale. My Iron Warriors then, I'm trying to make some space to claim this objective, so they just basically rush up and get right in front of those water ellies. The turtle then charges the copter. The copter has -1 def on them, but again, just more bad rolls, and I have a decent save, so he only does 2 wounds into the copter, and I pass him around there too. The Warbears then, they basically, seeing the right flank is good, they basically shift towards the center. They cast regen on the Iron Warriors right in front of the water elementals, and I think the hammerers on the bottom right above the rifles. So we cast more of those regens out. The crabs charge my bearded warriors and do 5 into them, but they pass their morale. My other bearded warriors just move up a little bit. The water ellies just go ahead and they just charge the Iron Warriors. They actually... Again, this is 20 attacks with AP2 that hit on 2. So he rolls, I think he rolls okay. He gets only got like 16 hits out of the 20. And then, yeah, it's still a 4-up save by a 5-up. So I roll good armor saves, and he only kills 8 of them. And that just shows you these Iron Warriors for Dwarves are so good with that 3-up shield wall. They're just so good. So these guys actually survive with 2 left. My hammers then just move up, getting ready to charge something. My hammers then are actually able to charge and hit this war turtle. They also have +1 to hit. So I murder that war turtle and actually face the flank of the crabs. The Guardian, actually seeing the left flank crumble, he just moves up to basically tank this charge. I don't want him coming around, so I just put the Guardian there. I think I give +1. The Guardian is able to give +1 to those hammerers right behind that building, so those hammerers are back to +1 to hit. And yeah, that's the end of turn 3. You can see here I've really crumbled. The right flank has crumbled for him, but my left flank has crumbled, and it's all about the center. So that's just the center here where I've really sort of pushed up, but I've also managed to push him back. He's cleared a lot of my chaff units, but I've now just have those hammerers that are just going to come in. And I've also got my bears as well. So for turn 4, he does get to go first. He sends his Depth Horrors into my Guardian. He does like 4 wounds on him, and actually I fail my morale, but he's not below, so it's just a waiver from my Guardian. I then charge my guys into the wavered Sea Guard, and I finish them off. The mechs then move forward and just claim that far right objective. His mage moves up and actually tries to cast a damage spell on my copter, but fails. So the copter is good. The copter then, to make room for the hammers, just moves up, shoots the crabs. I think he does a couple of wounds on them, or I think I'll even waver them. It doesn't matter. The Sea Guard move up. They shoot at these hammers. They kill 2 of them, but those are still 8 hammerers. That's 16 attacks on 2s. I go into the flank of those crabs and I just murdered them. So those crabs are very dead. And then I just surge forward a little bit. And at that point, Sam called it. Yeah, I know it was game right there, where I was just, it's going to be a 3-2 victory. He gets his 2 on the left, and then I gain the center. And then, so this is just me here. His water elementals really can't do anything. He doesn't have anything to contest this objective. So I gain the center. I gain this objective. And then I, of course, have the objective right next to mine. So, end of the game, it is a 3-2 victory to the Dwarves. I would say that Sam's rolls were pretty bad. But both of us like our tweaks to our lists. But I think that first of all, I think that Sea Elves aren't great. And secondly, I think that Sam he's still sort of playing the list in second edition when stealth was a lot more powerful. We'll get into that as well. But yeah, so some learning points just from a competitive standpoint. I would say that slow does feel a little too good. In other words, it's too much of a discount. I've just noticed that Dwarves, they're very good for their points. I would also say that, having terrain and using terrain really slow, it's not that big of a disadvantage when you're just moving in terrain. So, yeah, it's something maybe to look at, maybe a slight point tweak on slow. Conversely, I was saying this too, fast and very fast also feel sort of a little too expensive, where terrain is just really nasty against them because it just takes their 16-inch rushes and charge down to a 6-inch. Another thing I would say is that Shield Wall does feel a little underpointed. I know that Shield Wall and Protected are the same amount of points, while Shield Wall a lot of times is just objectively better. I know that there's spells that Shield Wall can't protect from, but I don't know. It does feel that Shield Wall should be a little more expensive than Protected. I don't know. I do like the command points. I think the command points are a really great addition to the game. I would say that, Sea Elves sort of need a lot of work. Army-wide Strider isn't great either. You don't need Strider on everything. It's a little bit of wasted points. Another thing that Sam has been trying to run these Monster Mash lists, and I would just say from a competitive standpoint, just, monsters in Age of Fantasy, they just can't compete against troops. I think that this sort of Monster Mash lists that work great in maybe like Kings of War, Monster Mash and Monster Heavy lists just can't compete. I think that troops are generally just better for the points than monsters. And I personally like that. I coming from Kings of War, where monsters sort of reign supreme, I like in this game that monsters are sort of a pick to kind of balance out an army, but you can't you can't go toe to toe with troops with monsters. It just doesn't work out. Well, hey, thanks for watching. You can always play against me on Universal Battles too. I'm also going to be getting involved in Tabletop Simulator, so that too. I'm always interested in some feedback. Again, we're really looking at sort of fine-tuning some competitive rules, so we'd love feedback on that. We are trying to grow the channel, so please like, subscribe, and comment. If you're in Austin, we're always playing in the Austin Alternative Gaming Freaks group. Thank you guys so much.